Well, what I'd like to, we did meet before for some of the more basic or preliminary topics. I will go through them very quickly, just to see if we can remind ourselves where we left off. We did go through the basics of an orientation, and I believe we began some of the advanced navigation topics. So I'm going to try to remind us how far we got in these topics, and then we'll proceed. And again, if the student that's joining us for an orientation in 40 minutes joins us, just do that and then come back. We'll also, I hope today, get into some administrative topics of how we record attendance, how there's a wealth of information in the Google Docs, and so forth. So we went through the orientation. Again, we'll go through that with a new student today, but it's basically taking the student on a tour of the room and showing them the different features. I'm not going to go into all of that in detail again at this time. And we open up for questions, so it's not only a technical tour, but it's a way of telling the student that they're going to be getting handouts after the class, the tutor will introduce themselves, and we get them comfortable. We then began speaking about, and I believe both Paul and Alvaro, we've covered these topics, but I'm going to name them quickly now, and please stop me if there's anything that you would like me to remind you, because it's a lot. You know, we cover so much, sometimes have to hear it 2 and 3 times. But we spoke about the advanced navigation, what I sometimes call the right-click commands, where you can see down below our names are all gathered under the heading hosts, and you would see all of the students down there in the position of participants. Again, in Spanish, I think it's what, moderator?
Moderador, efectivamente.
Excellent. So then let me see if I can just remind us, you can right-click and you can see the system information, which of course tells you their system ratings. You can run, if you look at what looks like a doctor's stethoscope, the network tools, you can, for a student, run the diagnostics. You can pause, stop their video. You can look at their video settings, which have some limitations unless they have a sophisticated camera. A more sophisticated camera can mirror things horizontally so that when you point to the right or to the left, you don't have to mirror it in your mind. There are some device settings. This becomes important to be able to help a student if they are pointing to the wrong device. So a student may have a headset, and yet the sound is not coming out of the headset, it's coming out of the speakers into their room, creating echo. You can often tell who the one is that's creating echo. For example, Alvaro, I can tell that your setup is creating just a little bit of echo. Paul, I draw your attention to the fact, that while I'm speaking, Alvaro is going a little bit green. Do you see that?
Yes, yes.
And you hear, Paul, a little bit of a squirrely sound, kind of a little after effect, or am I the only one that's hearing that?
I am hearing that.
Okay. Now, what I do as a method to start seeing what's going on is I'm right-clicking Alvaro's name, and I'm looking at device settings. And everything seems fine. He's pointing to the Phoenix T202. By the way, Paul, sparing no expense, we shipped one of those babies over to Madrid. And anyway, so it's not quite clear. Sometimes it does create that effect. I'm not quite sure what it is. Sometimes I think when you have 2 Phoenix on the same classroom, it creates that effect. So I'm not 100% sure how to resolve that, and I don't want to go too far down that path at this moment. But it's a good illustration to see that the student who's going green is the one that's creating some kind of echo. It may be, Alvaro, if you make your microphone a little bit less sensitive, that's a strategy. Or you make the speakers a little less loud so that the sound doesn't come out as loud. If, again, you have to be able to hear it, of course. But those are a couple of things that you could do. Is, for example, I'm going to lower the recording volume a little bit for you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you.
I can still hear you. Now I'm going to lower the playback volume also. but I want to ask you, can you still hear me all right? Is that all right?
It's all right. It's all right. Very, a little less sound, but it's okay.
Okay. Now, I notice as I'm speaking, and I'm not sure I did them both. I should have done them one at a time. Let me raise, since you said it's a little bit lower, I'm going to raise your volume back a little bit. Now, let me ask, can you hear me better now? But again, the green is coming back. So the other possibility is I can lower your sensitivity of your microphone even more. I don't know if you're noticing these changes. You'd be able to see them for yourself, Alvaro, if you go to the audio and look at the device settings. Let me show you that one. Yeah, if you go to the audio menu, where is it? Here it is. And then you click on where it says device settings, or actually even here, you'd be able to see these sliders sliding left and right as I was making those adjustments. So that is something that you can do for a student by one of these right-click commands. And the student, if they're in the audio menu, can observe what you're doing. So that's device settings. Private chat, I've largely, I think you as a host can begin a private chat. I'll show you in a moment. You can also do it through the share menu. I generally chat with everybody if I chat. I want to discourage private chats, and I may have mentioned to you that I've turned it off for participants. Students cannot initiate a private chat. I don't want them saying to each other, oh, there he goes again. When is this going to end? That sort of thing. So I've disabled it, but it does come in handy sometimes when when a student is having audio problems and you need to get a message to them. So that's the private chat. Remote file access is not available on a Macintosh, and that's where you can save files in the room. I generally don't use that because I don't know who's going to come into the room, and I may not want a student who missed the class to pick up the handouts. But it is available except on Macs. Remote control is how you take control of a student's computer. But we may get to that if we have time, because there are certain audio problems that are not related to OmniJoin per se, but may be related to their setup. For example, I had a gentleman, he's in the Monday night Part 4B class, having audio issues, and he said to me, it can't be my headset because I go on to audio chat, for business. He goes into meetings with his computer and his headset works then. And I realized that it turns out he's running Microsoft Link, which is a new, typically commercial business meeting software. And I was aware of this for Skype, but Skype for the video, but it now turns out that Microsoft Link for the audio has a similar effect. If it's running, and you may not even be aware that it's running, because sometimes you think you've shut it down, but it's running in the background, it will grab, in the case of Link, the audio signal. In the case of Skype, it'll grab the video signal, and lo and behold, the student comes into the room and you can't see them, or they can't hear you. I think I could hear him, but he couldn't hear me. It was some kind of partial thing, but we discovered by shutting off Link, the problem went away. And sometimes, again, if you have the latitude before class, you can, if a student's not aware how to do that and you feel comfortable doing it, you could take control of their computer and shut something like that down. And maybe we'll come on to that as an advanced topic a little bit later, but that's where you would use remote control. And I mention asking permission because even though when you click remote control, it pops up something they have to grant or allow control, I still like to warn the students so they don't feel that I'm being intrusive. I may make some joke that now I'm going to look through your emails or your bank accounts or something like that, but I still like to let them know that I'm going to try to take control. We just a moment ago were looking at the make command, where you can make somebody a different status than they are. I don't go much into privileges. I've rarely used that. That's where you could be more precise about what you want to allow a particular student. you could allow them to run a chat. You could allow them to advance the slides. And then there's the ever-popular expel button, which is every teacher's dream, that with just a click of a mouse, you can throw a student out of the classroom. And when do you use it? There are some legitimate times. If a student is frozen, I don't know, Alvaro, if you experienced that at all last term, but every so often a student might freeze.
I don't really.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I don't really understand, Randolph. About off. You speak about off.
Speak about, well, in English it's called expel.
Yes.
That the tutor may need, in certain circumstances, to throw a student out of the room, to expel them from the room.
Yes, but okay. No, in the last term, it's no necessary.
Okay, and I don't mean because they're behaving like a child. I didn't mean to expel them for a reason like that. What I meant is they're actually legitimate or valid reasons that you may want to use that. If, for example, someone is having such technical difficulties that you want them to leave the online classroom and come back in, and yet they themselves are frozen. Something in the technology, something in the internet connection. You may actually see someone who is, like stuck, and even though you hear them continuing to speak, their video is frozen. Sorry for the scary face, but and that is a situation where you may want to use the expel to force them out of the room so that they can have a fresh start. So they can, hopefully they understand, or maybe they can still hear you. I'm going to expel you, Paolo, I'm going to expel you, come back when you can, that kind of thing. And then you would click the expel button for that student. That's a reason that you might need to use something like that. All right?
All right. Yes.
Good. Let's continue. So any questions, gentlemen, on any of these right-click commands?
Just one on the private chat.
Yes.
Last time you mentioned that sometimes you enable it right before the class so that if students enter the room before the class begins, they can have a chat.
No. No, what I meant was, it's not the chat you're thinking of. What I was speaking about is that when we first built the classrooms, this is back in, I think, 2007 or 2008 when we began the program, there is a way to set up the room so that nobody is visible and nobody is audible until the host starts the meeting, so to speak. Similar to like you might do in some business conferences where you want to maintain control. And being the control freak that I am, I thought, okay, that would be nice. We'll wait until the tutor appears, and then everybody will appear. So it didn't have to do with chat call. It had to do with the audio and the video beginning all together. What I've discovered is it's a very nice social feature, and it even has some technical advantages to let everybody come in advance, be visible, be audible, have a conversation, and also, to realize that their headset isn't plugged in or whatever else they might realize in those moments before the class. So I no longer do that, thing where the tutor appears and everybody appears. That's what it was about.
Right. Okay.
I did mention also that the chat is disabled and only the tutor can begin it for the reasons I mentioned before. We don't want people chatting back and forth. So you also have. I'm going to move forward now to the to show you some of the top menus, just to be able to reference that in the share menu. You also have. That's where you can initiate a chat with everyone. The right-click chat that we were just looking at a moment ago, where it says private chat, I believe I'm going to try it as an experiment. I'm going to right-click Alvaro's name and click private chat, and then I'm going to type hello, Alvaro, and I believe only Alvaro will see that. Paul, you don't see that, do you?
No, I do not.
Okay. So that's a private chat. which you can also initiate through the share menu. Because as you'll see, if we'll experiment with it in a moment, I'm going to stop this chat. Actually, you can have multiple chats, so I'll keep this one here. I'm going to start another one with Paul. So now there's two chats going. In fact, they have different tabs, is the way I see it, and you'll see in a moment. Hi, Paul. If you go to the next, then for me it's the next slide. I'm sorry, to the share menu. Look at the chat feature. You'll see that you have a number of different options. You could chat with everyone. You could chat only with the hosts. Of course, we're all hosts, so there's no difference there. Or you could chat with a specific user. So why don't you experiment with that? Start a chat with either one of the other hosts or everybody. Aha. So somebody started one with all hosts. I can't tell who started it, but you may notice now that there's several. For me, there are 3 tabs. For you, there are probably 2 tabs. One that's Paul and Randolph, one that's Alvaro and Randolph, and one that's all hosts.
Okay.
So you can make yourself entirely crazy, bouncing it back and forth with conversations with different students. Yep. There we go. Yep. Yep, somebody's stopping the chats. That was probably Paul.
Yes.
Excellent. Exactly. That's how you would stop the chats. And again, my only use for that I've found is when there's some kind of audio problem with a student and I need to say, pick up the phone because I'm sitting there calling them. I'm hearing the phone ringing in the background and they're being very dutiful and not going to answer the phone while the tutor's in front of them. And I'm saying, they can't hear me. So then you might want to use a chat to make the point. Okay? All right, so I'm going to stop the chat just to make a little bit more space here on the screen for myself. And we're going to go now into the advanced navigation, some of these different menus. And I think we may have touched on some of these when last we spoke, so I may not spend, please stop me along the way. Oh, I'm sorry, before I do, I should have asked again, were there any more questions on the on these kinds of right-click commands?
None from me.
Okay, thank you. All right, good.
No, thank you. No.
So we'll continue. And I'm going to touch on the different menus that you see along the top of your screen. The first one being the meeting menu. I don't think I've ever used the invite button. You can see that there are different ways that you can invite students. There is also, within this screen, one of the tabs, and I want to make sure to mention this because this is sometimes useful to me. If you go across, let me see, I don't know if I have any slides that help illustrate this. Let me just see for a moment. No, what I mean is if you go to one of the tabs and you actually move all the way over to the left, you may have to use this little button that I'm pointing to go to the tabs to the left, not the trial, not the training material, but all the way to the left, you'll see a menu that's called the Start menu. Again, I don't know what it is in Spanish, Alvaro. I just moved to it, actually. Are you on the Start menu now, gentlemen?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
If I click it, of course, you're going to come to the Start menu. In the Start menu, you have a number of the functions that you would have in the Share menu, like you could share your desktop, share an application, share a PowerPoint, share a chat. But you can also, you have some of those invites that you can use in that you also find in the Meeting menu under Invite to Meeting. And the only one that I ever find useful is the invite by link. You see that with the links for a chain?
Yes.
Yes.
And if you click that, and then you click, there's, again, in English it says copy link. That puts the link into the clipboard of your computer. And another use I've found for the chat feature, which I'm going to open up now with both of you gentlemen, is to paste that link and send it to a student. And then what I might do is take control of that student's computer, and from their side, from being sort of within their experience, I copy it. Now again, I'm not copying it on my computer, I'm copying it on their computer into their clipboard, and then I paste it onto their desktop to create a shortcut so that they have a one-click link to get into their classroom. Was that all clear?
Yes.
Yes, but when you copy this link in the text, you need the permission of the student.
Exactly.
It's okay.
Yes. Let me demonstrate, if I may, since the questions come up. I'm going to do it, if I may, on your desktop, Alvaro. Paul can watch. I'll create a shortcut, which we can delete afterwards, because, of course, you have no need to come into this classroom, you know, the one that we're in right now. But just as an illustration, I'm right-clicking on Alvaro's name. I'm clicking on Remote Control, which is going to ask him permission.
Okay.
And as soon as he grants permission, I see your remote control request was approved. We can now see Alvaro's desktop. Iniziando una conferencia. What I'm going to do, first of all, is I'm going to come over to the bar. That's interesting. Oh, of course, yes, understood.
Yeah.
I understand what that is, yes. Okay. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually acting on Alvaro's computer. I'm selecting that link that I pasted into the chat. Oops, I grabbed too much. You have to be careful. You have to, it's a little tricky to grab just what you want and no more. I'm right-clicking, which brings up the fact that I can copiar.
Copiar, yes.
Copiar. And now that link is sitting in the clipboard within memory of Alvaro's computer. I'm going to now, is this Windows 7? I can show the desktop? Let's see.
Windows Vista.
Okay. So, how can I don't know the Spanish, forgive me. How do I show the desktop?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. And now what I'm doing, Paul, do you see the desktop?
I do.
Good. So now I'm right-clicking. Again, this is me acting on the student's computer. I'm right-clicking. I want to do a nuevo.
Yes.
Left-click. Accept nuevo. I'm hoping it's acceso directo, or shortcut, as we say in English.
Yes, perfect.
And then I'm right-clicking within that and doing a pegar, or paste. Et voila, which is French for, and there you see it, or something like that. And then I'm going to do seguente, next.
Siguiente, yes.
And then I might type something like Tuesday, or lunes, or something.
Yes.
Philosophy class.
Perfect. Okay.
And then hit finalizar.
Finalizar. Yes.
And again, et voila, there it is. So now the student has a one-click. They don't have to look in the email. They don't have to dig up the link. It's a nice, if I have the time and it seems right, that's a nice thing to do if the student says they don't know how to do that themselves. Shall I delete that? Or we could look at the Isha Upanishads while we're here. Just joking. Okay. Is eliminar delete? Is that what delete is in Spanish?
Yes, it's perfect. Okay. You understand very good.
It's, and I say, see?
Yes.
And, it's gone. So now we'll come back to the classroom. Oh, by the way, before you give up, if you've taken control of somebody's desktop, just another nice move or another nice consideration is before you give up control, bring them back to where they can see you. Otherwise, they may get lost. Some students don't realize they even have different windows open on their computer. So we were on the desktop, or sometimes we might be in something else, and you know, it's just a nice thing to bring them back to where they can see you before you give up control, before you stop the sharing on that. All right?
It's, I'm sorry, when you abandon the control, the remote control,
Yes.
you need to this button, dejar de compartir. No, I'm sorry, in English.
Yes. Dejar de
Lift,
compartir. Dejar de compartir.
lift.
But I can do it. It's interesting. In the position that I'm in now, I could do it two ways. I could push it on your computer, or I could come out, and I can't show you this, but I could push it on my computer where it says it in English, stop sharing.
Okay.
Either
Yes.
way, I dejar de compartir.
Okay. Perfect.
All I was saying is that before I do that, before I relinquish control, I just want to remember to bring the student back to where we can see each other, because sometimes they may be left looking at the desktop and not know how to get back to see me or to see you. That's all. It's just a little nuance, a little subtlety that I've discovered along the way, that not to give control. And speaking of which, while I'm here, I just want to show you that one of the most popular reasons that I might take control of somebody's computer is to look at their audio, which is down here. And by right-clicking it, you can check to see that they're pointing to the correct device. Sometimes it goes beyond OmniJoin, and it's actually within their operating system that the device isn't being accessed. So it's a little bit more sophisticated problem solving or troubleshooting, but that's one of the more popular ones. The other thing while I'm here that I might be looking for is what other software they're running that might interfere with the class. So I'd be looking for something like Skype, perhaps, or now the fact, Alvaro, that it looks like you're doing a system scan at the moment. You see that McAfee has kicked in, and it's doing the virus scan. That can very much slow down everything on your computer.
Oh, yes. Okay.
But are you not experiencing any lag or difficulty? Is that, it's all right, our connection?
Yes, the antivirus is very, that you say, very
Demanding.
Yes, and it's normally show the pop-ups of the analyze to the PC, and it's necessary to stopping, and I don't know really that it is the difficulty for the speed of the. I think the speed of the bandwidth is possible.
It doesn't affect the bandwidth, but it can affect the overall performance of your computer itself. So I would recommend turning it off during class, making sure. No, I don't mean turning off your antivirus. I mean turning off the scan. Sometimes it happens once a day or once a week. We may just be lucky that you have yours set to run on Saturday, that sort of thing.
Yes, okay.
Anyway, I'm just trying to illustrate that you can use this to look for things that are running. Another thing that you might look for is, for example, I see that there's some webcam software that's running. Now, it may be counterintuitive, or it may not make direct sense why you would want to turn off webcam software. After all, we're looking at each other using the webcam. But the fact is that you don't actually use the webcam software, you just use the webcam hardware in this class, the physical webcam itself. Now, sometimes the webcam software can create problems. I don't think it's causing them now, but it can do all kinds of funny things. It can put special effects. Paul, I once met with Howard Schott in one of these, and he had some software where he could put an arrow through his head. So while he was speaking, it was really, charming, or a funny hat, or a wig, or something. They have these software where it can do certain things to your face, which can be very funny if a student shows up as a big dog that's talking with their voice, that sort of thing. Anyway, so the fact is we don't need to be running that. So but I'm just going to minimize it. I'm not going to shut it down because it doesn't seem to be interfering in this case. All right, I'm going to give up control. Before I do, I'm going to stop the chat so you can both watch me do that. You see it disappeared on all screens as well as on the share. And then I'm going to give up control. I'm going to have fun. I'll do it by clicking it on Alvaro's, the last command that I can do. And then we'll be back. Here we are. And we'll continue the training. Any questions on all of that?
No, it seems clear.
Okay, good. So what we did is we used the chat and the remote control to create a shortcut on the student's desktop. And all of that started by looking at the invite to meeting where you can get that link. But you can also get it on the share menu. I beg your pardon, on the, not on the share menu, on the start share.
You generally provide the links for them in the one-on-one training?
What happens, that's a very good question. What happens is in order to have do I put it on their desktop? Again, it's a question of if the person is really, it seems like that would be a good thing, I take the time to do that. Or if I have enough time and it seems, pleasant enough to do that, yes. Where possible, I think to do that, and I do it. And maybe I'll do it when I have the one-on-one with all of your students, Paul. We'll see if I can talk them through that. It may be difficult to do it for 7 different people individually, but maybe I'll talk one person through it to demonstrate to everybody else. We'll see how it works. That would be a nice to have. Now, of course, in order to have the one-on-one, I've already sent them the link in the email. Obviously, they have that. And that's part of the process, which I should perhaps mention, that when students register, we send them an email that gives them all of these instructions. And I know, Alvaro, you're doing that in Spanish. I can't be of any help to help with those emails or meeting with the students in advance. But that's the process. They get the link, they get the password, they get an invitation to come and meet at a mutually convenient time for the one-on-one. Let's keep going. I've never used the lock feature. We talked about the fact that you can record the meetings. And you've seen how you can elevate yourself if you know the password by using the take host or moderator or the presenter. And I believe I've warned you in the past of the difference between the leave meeting and the end meeting. Leave meeting is something you do all the time. You can also do it by pressing the leave meeting, that red button to the top right. Or in fact, all the way at the top right, you have the X like you would have in any browser session, and that, of course, you can leave the meeting using that as well. And leave the meeting is harmless. Ending the meeting has a bit of harm, and I remind you to avoid ending the meeting. If you do end it by mistake, just get in touch with me, and I'll have to rebuild the meeting, which is the work of a couple of minutes, but depending on where I am, I hope you don't do it right before class begins. More often, and it has happened to me, it's happened to a number of tutors, you have a wonderful evening, you're all excited, and you hit the wrong button. And it even warns you, are you sure you want to do this? And you're so excited. The satwa is just running through your brain. You say, of course, don't ask me what I'm sure of course I'm sure. And you completely destroy the classroom, thus illustrating Kashaya at its best. So, again, if you do that, no real harm, just let me know and I'll rebuild the room. Okay, so you want to avoid the end meeting. Any questions on this menu?
No.
Okay.
No.
Let's move on to the share. Now, I believe, Alvaro, you and I may have done this. Paul, did we ever get to sharing something like a PowerPoint?
We did share a few slides.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Yeah, as a matter of fact, you had sent me the PDF for the first year, and I believe you had me share that.
That's right. We shared that. Now, you would share a PDF or a Microsoft Word document, if you had one, using the shared document. If you have a PowerPoint, which we've created for the philosophy class, in fact, that's what you're seeing here. These are all PowerPoints. You would use the share PowerPoint. After you've done the share, there's no difference. they both appear the same, whether it's a document or a PowerPoint. It's a bunch of pages that you can page through in advance using the commands that we'll look at in a few moments. Sharing a web browser is a little bit different. I'll actually use that in a few minutes when I show you the Google Docs, if we get to it. Let me ask you, by the way, I notice it's 5 or 6 minutes before the hour, and if Kelly McCoy from Lincolnshire, United Kingdom shows up, we're going to change to that. How is your time for continuing? Or I could ask again when we finish. Let's see how long it takes. If it goes quickly, it could only be 20 minutes or so with Kelly. But obviously, we're not going to complete the training today, or at least in the next 5 minutes, I should say. So let's see if we can continue thereafter. So there are different things.
Well, I'm fine for a while.
Okay, thank you. You could share your whole desktop. That becomes a little bit restrictive in the sense that if you just share an application, like let's say you're running Microsoft Word, then that's the only thing that the students see. If you share your desktop, they see everything that you see. And again, you know, that's your choice. It has certain capabilities. You can also share a media file. I'll have a little bit of fun sharing a media file. Alvaro, when I was working with Paul the other day, it reminded me that when we were first experimenting with sounding and calligraphy, we wanted to see if we could perhaps take a picture of someone drawing something in calligraphy so we didn't have to worry about making a mistake or spilling ink all over the place. And so we created a little video which I'm going to share with you now. Just to give an idea of what's possible.
Writing the Devanagari letter A.
Ah, perfect. Good.
First, write the distinguishing marks, the two loops maintaining the 45-degree angle.
Now, Paul, I don't know if you come from the school that says you do that last.
And then the bar above, the vertical bar, and connect.
They're great.
Again,
you know, it's like the Sunni and the Shia. There's some Sanskritists that say you draw the bar on the top first, and some say you draw it last, bar, right? Something like that.
Vertical bar, and the
It's
connecting
very good.
line. One more time.
Yeah, the last time you could see my mind started to waver a bit.
Randolph, how is possible to record this
finish
this when you is writing?
The way that I recorded it, in a way, had nothing to do with OmniJoin. I had a camera. So imagine for a moment that we're not even in this online classroom together. You take your webcam, and you'll see that the webcam has a record feature. And you just position your webcam pointing at your board or whatever you're drawing on. Again, you don't have to be an OmniJoin at all. You're making this recording. And then, in this particular case, it's a WMV file, which stands for, I think, a Windows media file. Whatever format it becomes, then you can use the share feature to share that media file. And then you point to it. You'll see that you point to it. Because one of the things we were thinking about is we could also have in the sounding and calligraphy the tutor signed on at 2 different computers with 2 different video squares, one of which would be pointing to the tutor's face, and another one that would be pointing to an easel, a board, so where they could write. Or maybe they could even have a trusty assistant, the class secretary, at a different location who's doing the drawing. I mean, there are all different ways that we could approach this. So we were just experimenting and trying to see, how it worked. But that's another way. You could actually have yet another video square with either another computer in your home or an assistant somewhere else that did that for you. And Paul, that's something I'd like to, chat about. Not necessarily that, but it crossed my mind. I was looking at the material, and I just I just want to be careful that we're not doing conversational Sanskrit. Really, that we move towards giving them the laws of the universe, the grammar, what they need for studying Shruti, for the vowels, for appreciating certainly where the speech, the formation of speech and the words. But I don't want to go too far down the road of, how do you say pup tent in Sanskrit in plural or singular, that kind of thing.
No, the intention is to follow the course, give them facility in reading and writing.
So if you need to step away from that formal 9-term syllabus, let's talk about that. I'm certainly free and not holding to anything in particular principle. Good. All right, so that's some of the share. I'm going to stop sharing the we don't need that anymore. Let me just stop sharing.
I have a question about that,
Yes.
Randolph.
Yes.
When you show a video, is there an audio lag as we have in live conversation now, or does it avoid that?
I'm sorry. Say it again. Is there an audio?
When you're sharing a video,
Yes.
just as you did there,
Yes.
is there a lag? You know how the lag exists when we're speaking now? Is that eliminated when you use a video?
Well, the interesting thing is the lag, because typically the lag for your video and your audio are somewhat in sync. It creates an illusion that my lips are moving at the same time as I'm speaking, which they are here, and they also are you. The fact that at your location, the fact that it may be a second or two after I spoke it, sort of catches up to itself because they both arrive at the same time, usually. There can be a little bit of a delay, but I think all of that is corrected in the presentation of this audio. Of course, you can't tell. It would be easier if I did something in the video like 1, 2, 3, 4. Are you hearing it at the same time as my fingers appearing? 1.
Right.
2.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty close, right? Now again, you may be hearing them a second after I uttered them, but they're both being delayed by the same amount, so the illusion is, or the reality, that they're taking place at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. But I believe all of that is not an issue when you record a video, because it all gets presented on your computer. Now, Kelly is again late. If you'll excuse me, I've grown accustomed to not giving students the 15-minute professorial courtesy. I'm going to just send a quick email to ask if she, in fact, is going to join us. Just give me a moment, please. If she was in the United States, I'd be calling her about now. We can edit this out of the final video. Just bear with me a moment. Okay, thank you for your patience. All right. Any other questions so far?
No.
Okay.
No.
So that's the share menu, and I invite you to experiment with it. In a moment, I'll share a web browser, and we'll see what that. Actually, I invite you to try that. You may not ever have a need to do that, but it is a little bit different, which you'll see. Because, of course, on a web browser, you're not advancing pages and that sort of thing. All right. Coming on to the, let's see. Coming on to the video, you'll be familiar with pretty much all of the stuff that's going on the left-hand side, because in the right-click command, you can do the same things. You can pause the video, you can stop the video. I'll just remind myself, I'm not sure if I pause the video, is it for everyone? No, it's just for me. Let me see if I can pause it for all of the hosts. No, it's just for me. That's interesting. There used to be a way to, oh yes, you can pause all and stop all.
Pause
yes.
all?
Yeah, there we go. So if for some reason, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you could pause all of the videos, and there you see us frozen, or play all. Okay. Now, what I don't believe I've gotten into yet in our previous lessons is the use of resolution, or quality, or frames per second. When I build these rooms, I am able to select a default for these that result in, and I invite you to go over to the video and click on the resolution button so that you can see that right now we are at 320 times 240. And I've just selected that. It seems optimal. Where this may come in to use is if you are having very bad connection problems. It may be just for one student, but nevertheless, if you want to try to help, unfortunately, you have to help by changing the resolution for everybody. By degrading or lowering the resolution, what you do is you lower the video quality, but for the benefit of the audio quality and the benefit of the overall connection, because video is resource intensive. It uses a lot of the bandwidth. Think of that bandwidth as a pipe that's carrying the audio and the video traffic. And if you don't allow that truck, that big traffic for the video to use the whole highway, the audio will have more space. And sometimes that's necessary. And now I'm going to show you, actually, Paul, why don't you degrade the resolution down to 160 by 120? And you'll notice that it goes through a little moment of sort of changing. And it's a little bit fuzzier. Maybe it's not as crisp. Another thing that you can do is if you look at the frames per second, if you remember the old Gurdjieff-Uspensky material, at 30 frames per second, I think was what he felt was the impression. Anybody remember that? Oh my!
No.
I'm dating myself.
Sounds interesting, though.
He felt that an impression, that the time of an impression was, for a human being, was 1/30th of a second. And so faster movements we don't see, which is a good thing. Otherwise you'd see, you know, the cells moving on your skin and things like that. It'd be really disconcerting. So happily, anyway, if you need to lower that, let me lower it for a moment, just see if we can notice any difference. I'll lower it down to 2 frames a second. Yeah, we start getting very choppy. Do you notice now, especially if you move? Ah, wonderful. Gentlemen, I'm going to change to the part 1, put our resolution back, put our frames per second back, and looks like we're going to be met by Miss Kelly McCoy. If everything's working, I see that the audio is in place. You may notice the video is not yet other than gray. Sometimes the video takes a moment to appear, or there could be an issue. Kelly, do you hear me? Good afternoon. Hello?
Wonderful. Good morning to you. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. Good afternoon. Oh, there you are. Greetings. Oh, very nice to meet you. Hello.